Okay, so we are recording. So, welcome everyone. My name is Dasa Daniel. I am student representative for Counselors for Social Justice. This is Counselors for Social Justice. I'm like so excited, y'all. I'm like, my fast. Let me slow down. So this is Counselors for Social Justice Transitioning to Career webinar. And we are here with Rafe and Courtney, who I actually know personally. Thank you for saying yes to this.
Anytime.
And the reason why I asked both of you is because one, so Courtney's went through academia, but now is working at TRIO at New Jersey City University, and Rafe is in Oregon.
Yes, it's actually Fulton-Montgomery Community College.
Oh, thank you. I can, like, read notes and all of it.
Okay.
And then, and she oversees 160 students, which is bananas. That is amazing. And then Rafe, who is a professor at Lewis and Clark, is that right?
Yep.
I think so. Okay. Lewis and Clark. And I met Rafe at my second ACA. So, like, ooh, bless you. I feel like I've known you a minute as well. So I think we're just going to jump straight in and kind of, if you want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about things you have going on or things that I didn't say. There's so much going
on. I guess I can go first then. Hi everyone, my name is Courtney Wilson. I'm currently serving as a TRIO counselor transfer advisor at Fulton-Montgomery Community College, which is located in Johnstown, New York. Many may not be familiar with the area, but it's 40 minutes outside Albany, New York, so I'm pretty much upstate right now. So right now, like Dessa said earlier, I do oversee 160 students who are either low income or first generation college students. First generation is typically parents who have not received a bachelor's degree. And with that, we have a area designated for those students to have those important and essential resources such as a tutor, such as computers. Also, we have myself and my coworker, we work right in the area, so they have us within reach. And we also do 4-year transfer trips. We also have end of year celebration. We have supplies for them. So if because we know as a student, it becomes very costly when it comes to textbooks as well as materials needed for classes. So we will provide those for the students, not the textbooks, but the notebooks, pens, papers, stuff like that. And we just expose them to let them know that we are here to support you. You're not alone in this journey that we call college. So we help them in those ways. And the beauty of it is when you see them at graduation, and I love it. And it's like a heartfelt accomplishment when you see them and they look at you and say thank you for what you have done. So currently I'm actually at a conference right now, NASPA. I just landed in Philadelphia. It is horrible outside, by the way. My clothes were all wet, so I had to change within 10 minutes to get on the webinar. But so yeah, so right now I'm at NASPA in Philadelphia, and I'm going to the Community College Institute.
Okay, that's fantastic. And Rafe?
Yeah, well, I graduated in the summer of 2016 from Georgia State University. So I made a couple of cross-country trips. I moved from Seattle to Atlanta, and then I moved from Atlanta to Portland. So I'm back out here again on the left coast. And I work at Loiss and Clark College. I'm a counselor educator there, and this is my second year, so I'm about 1.5 years in, so I kind of got a feel for things. Your first year is kind of like everything's moving at your head so fast. I remembered last year in the middle of January, I was like, wait, I never set up my voicemail box. How do I do that? So it's like you're learning a whole new system. Every university is super different, and this is a really small college, and so it carries with it a little bit more other duties as assigned, because we have less people to do more things or the same amount of things, and so there's a lot of that kind of creeps in there. But it's been a pretty wild ride and a good experience so far. So happy to offer up whatever I can share that would be of help to anyone.
Oh, absolutely. So something that first came to mind for me is, how did you decide? So like, how did you decide for either, like, I know you are at Lewis and Clark, you're working as a PhD level counselor, but then also for Courtney, you know, how did you decide to transition into TRIO? Because both of you seem very student focused, but you guys are both doing like very different things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Rafe, you want to start?
I was waiting for you, but.
Oh. So how did I decide, is what you're saying, Daisy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my decision was pretty simple because I am a TRIO alum myself. I was a part of the Upward Bound program at New Jersey City University. So that was pretty much like home to me. And being part of that program, I also was a part of student support services at Rutgers University. So they did give me all the essential tools to do well in school. And I saw the position open. I'm like, well, yeah, of course, like a no-brainer. And I know that I learned so much from being in those programs that I would be a great contribution to giving back to what have given me the opportunity to go to college myself. So being in that position and seeing like where my students are is what I have been many years ago. It's like, oh, I know what's going on and I can help you with that. And that transfers to relatability of which I can help with them. So and when they say like things like, oh, Courtney, you understand? I'm like, well, I definitely understand how it feels to not have money to get books. And I feel like I understand how it feels to not think that I'm afraid to talk to a professor when really it's just like a blockage and mentally when you could just, confront that. So once I saw that position, I'm just like, I have to do it, and then became a part of it.
That's awesome.
I came here to hear other people's stories too, so thank you for sharing. I have a school counseling and a mental health counseling background, and a few years ago, before I started my PhD program, I never, ever, ever even wanted to get a PhD. It was not in the cards at all. I never knew anybody that had one. I never even knew why you'd want one, But I was chosen to asked to teach as an adjunct at Seattle University, where that was my master's institution. And I loved my counsel. I was working as a school counselor at the time, and I loved my counseling job, but and I was scared to death to do like an adjunct thing because I'm like, I don't know how to teach. I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing. But my mentor over there talked me into it, and so I started, and man, did I over prepare. Like I had things broken down to like 5-minute increments of like how the whole thing was going to be choreographed. And then I got in there, I was like, do they even know that they have this person who's not a real teacher in here? Like I just had horrible imposter syndrome and, all this stuff. But then I started to relax into it, and I started to kind of feel the kind of back and forth of, students getting some things from me, I'm getting some things from them, they're getting some things from each other. It just felt really nice. And so after about 6 weeks and I got over my jitters, I was like, man, I really, really love this. How can I get more of this in my life? And so I did it for 3 more years before I dragged my butt across the country and decided to make the commitment. My partner lives in Seattle, so we kind of had to do long distance for a while. And so that was a hard decision, just a lot of different things I had to decide. And so I went to a PhD program, and the whole time I had that in my mind. I want to get more of that experience that I had with those students that was just so symbiotic and beautiful. And so I knew I was going to be a counselor educator. That was the whole reason why I went. And so that's what I did.
It's so, like, I love so much that you both talked about, like, being nervous, but then also having, like, some imposter going on in these spaces, but then also the realization that the goal and, like, the dream at the end was worth the push through. So not just, like, because even me now, I'm like, man, can I do this? I'm, like, nervous about this. Should I go this direction? But then still remembering like what the end goal is, even though we may not know exactly what it looks like, but we like have an idea of like where we want to be.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, I definitely had a case of imposter syndrome, like my very first year in my position, because I felt that I was always questioning myself, like, wait, in grad school, I was like everywhere. I was the president of CSI, Casa Mariota Counseling Honor Society. I was a graduate assistant. I was like the go-to person and doing everything and everywhere. And then when I came here and came to my position, I was like, wait, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. Is there something wrong with me? And on top of it, like, the climate that I work in is very opposite of what I'm used to. So, but from being like in culturally diverse areas to going to a more rural location, that definitely took me for a whirlwind. And I had to say to myself, and I'm thankful for my mentors, I'm thankful for my professors, because they censored me, and due to this, so like you censored me too, and and gave me the strength and courage to understand that it's not you. Just transition, learn your culture and stuff, and how can you be an asset to that area. So and learning and doing that, it actually, now I'm in a better place, because I'm like, okay, I couldn't just now say that, okay, this idea may not work, but how can I make this a little bit better? So I'm happy that I'm in the place that I'm in right now compared to a year ago when I was like, oh no, why me? So yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So for both of you, I'm wondering, in kind of on lines of what you just talked about, Courtney, when you're transitioning into first year in that space, how did you keep the mentorship of people who you knew in other situations or like other spaces, like either at ACA or your past universities? But then also, how do you start to like reform those relationships where you're at? Like, how did you find mentorship in like upstate New York or in Portland? Like, how did you get mentorship like on the ground?
That's a good question. For me, I've had a mentor that I had in my master's program who has just been my solid mentor all the way throughout. He's the one I call about everything if something comes up. He's the one I called when I was at Georgia State, even though I had good mentors there. But it's just, history, and he's the one I call now. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm struggling with that now because, at a small university, there's not a lot of people doing the same thing. So like at Georgia State, there's like this incubator of research and buzz about the air, in a public institution like that. That's huge. And so everybody's going around working on everybody's stuff, and there's like a high level of collaboration going on. And when I came here, I was like, wow, I feel like I'm just like out on an island by myself in a way, because, part of that's just coming into a new culture and getting used to it, and nobody knows who you are. They don't know if you're worth knowing or trustworthy or, just all those things. And so it was hard to kind of make my way in. But what I did was I found folks that were coming in from different programs that were coming in at the same time as I was. And we decided that we were going to have like a meetup and get together and talk about our first year experiences and stuff like that. And we liked it so much because there were so few of us that we now in our second year still get together and meet up a lot. And now we've extended an invitation to the first year people to kind of join us as new people. And so it hasn't really been so much mentoring. I keep my old mentor, and I get to have these really great colleagues who are going through what I'm going through. One of them lived in Georgia and moved she's from the Northwest, moved to Georgia, and we both moved to Lewis and Clark at the same time.
Wow.
We didn't know each other, but our experiences are very similar of experiencing that environment and then going to this one. So
absolutely.
I would say for myself, our mentors definitely kept in contact with them more than they kept in contact with me. I'm like, hello. So I will call them a lot just to like, I guess recenter and refocus and just give me that confirmation that I'm doing okay in that transition. So I would always call them, or rather, I do go home time to time. It is a 3-hour drive, so I do go home like maybe once a month, and I might just catch up with them over like, a cup of coffee, or like just meet them at their job and just talk and discuss some things. And they're been very helpful. Also in that transition, I am in a sorority, so the chapter that's close to me have been great support too. So, and when I talk to them, they also give me that confirmation and like just support that, you know, you're not the only person in the situation, but I could definitely tell you, like, you know, how to deal and handle in situations. And I've been definitely grateful for that. And just like yesterday, for example, I met with 2 of my sorors up there, and I was just talking to them, and it's like the same thing I'm going through, and I'm a new professional. They're going through the same thing as an executive. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's not me, but I'm grateful for them to give me that mentorship and give me that advice to just know that, you know, it's okay, and you're new, but still you're able to transition and do profoundly in your position.
Yeah. What really stood out to me is it's not just the having mentorship or having those relationships, but then also having the perspective. So like really like keeping down to earth and like just being very grounded and being like, okay, I'm new to this. And so are a lot of other people, or even like senior people are having similar experiences to me. And so realizing that like you're maybe alone in your experience of being a first year or like being where you are in this process, but you're not alone in like the global sense of like what's happening around you.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that's also just so helpful, because I think we highlight mentors, but we don't also highlight like just perspective. And you almost can get perspective from anywhere, not necessarily just like someone who's like 8 years older than you or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. That's
I would say, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
My boss, I call her Queen Bee, but but my boss, she's been very instrumental too, because she's like very humble, and like she'll take the time to talk and like understand that I'm going through stuff, and like, and she's supportive, and I'm thinking like, wow, like I didn't know that you could be such a great support in this transition, because she know like this is my first time moving from Jersey City, New Jersey to upstate New York. And she was like, Courtney, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, what? I'm like, thank you for asking, but yeah, just show me to the nearest like hair store and I'm okay. But but yeah, she's been very helpful and supportive, and she sits down and talks to me on a monthly basis just to check in and just to see, like, you know, if you have any questions or anything. And I greatly appreciate that once a month meeting, because now I can like let my hair down, let her know like what's going on, and she's very like receptive of my concerns and stuff. So that made me feel even more better that I'm in a position where my boss is very supportive. She will take the extra miles to just make sure I'm okay and whatever I need to be attended to. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that you said that really struck to me is also the moving process. So like, I remember when my first ACEs ever, Rafe and I had a long conversation about how he wanted to move back to the West Coast. And I remember just being so like, well, how do you know? Like, what if there's no jobs over there? Like, what if you, like, why don't you just stay on the East Coast? And so for both of you, the decision to move, what were those driving factors in that? And then how did you know it was right for you?
That's such a good question. That's such an important part of my decision-making process, because, I mean, for me, as a transgender person, you know, like moving to Georgia was really scary for me. Having, you know, moved out to Seattle from the Midwest to sort of escape the climate years ago to start my transition, I then had lived in Seattle where I felt like I was pretty safe and insulated from a lot of things, but then moving out again was really a scary step for me. And so I did it, and I felt pretty good there. You know, it's not without its bad experiences, but but for me, the really important part were 2 considerations. One was I have to be in an urban area because I have to be able to find community. And it can't just be all about my job. And then I wanted to be back close to my partner as much as possible. We didn't get in the same city, but we got close. For now, it's good enough, and it's not 3,000 miles away. So those were the 2 main reasons. I had to feel safe in my environment. So that was what the driver was for me.
Absolutely.
And I commend you, Ray, for your transition and to moving from area to area. I commend you for real.
Thank you.
No problem. For me, my driving mood was that I always wanted to try something new. And I said to myself, like, okay, I've been in the urban area for all my life. And quite frankly, I actually didn't know where I was moving to up until the interview day. So yeah, interesting. I went there and I liked them. Like, oh, this is scenic. It's beautiful. It's a very different area from where I'm used to. So let me just try it. And although at first it was very hard to transition from urban to rural, I would say I learned so much about myself in that transition that I probably would have not learned if I had stayed in urban area for all of my life. I had to learn to be more self-sufficient. I had to learn to be on my own and be independent. And although I thought I was independent back at home in Jersey City, there was a whole completely different independent being in a rural area. Like, okay, my car breaks down, how I'm going to get my car fixed, or gaining a sense of family. And luckily, my coworkers have generated a sense of family and accepted me very well. That I was like, you're being very nice. Like, I can't take this. So I learned to be resilient and be more independent, learn about myself intrinsically, like what motivates me and what drives me and stuff that I haven't experienced back being in Jersey City. And I learned a lot. I learned a great deal. So I am thankful, even though it was rough at first, I'm so thankful for the transition because I grew as an individual and I see myself blossoming to a better person by doing so.
Yeah, I think I don't want it to be lost at also how much self-efficacy that takes for both of you to really decide to almost so also different, being like, I want to be back with family or I want to stay close to family, and then really making decisions on that process. And I'm really wondering, and it's probably because I know this is not taught, but how did you get there? How do you leave your either master's program or your PhD program? And how did your programs prepare you for that transition? Or maybe if they didn't, how did you get that information to still feel successful where you are right now?
I'll take it. So did I feel like my college prepared me? To be honest with you, no, I don't think it did. I think it just prepared me to just know my information, my profession, and that's pretty much it. But for life, change and transition and stuff, I had to learn on my own. But the thing is that I was still close with some of the faculty that was there to still call if I ever need anything. And they were pretty much helpful in that sense. But to be on my own and in my profession, I felt like I had to learn a lot more than what was taught in the classroom. And that was tough because I'm like, well, I learned this and shouldn't be that. And it's kind of it's not black and white. It's kind of like the gray line and stuff. Kind of like when you have a student and you have you're talking to them and stuff, and it's okay, I think it should be this, but then it's this, and this. So I learned that it's a whole culmination of things that I had to learn. It's not just specific X, Y, and Z, but it may be a culmination of things all in between to get everything together.
Yeah.
I think for me, I feel like my PhD program really prepared me to be professionally successful. So they equipped me with the skills to one connection and networking, right? When you go to a counselor education institution in the Southeast, there's just a lot more. Out West, there isn't a lot going on, at least on the coast. Yeah. And so to go there and be in sort of where all that activity is going on, where, all that conversation is happening, decisions get made, I feel like I got a really good opportunity to meet a wide variety of different counselor educators out in the field and get to know people. And so that's one thing that I feel like. And then the other part is just to be a faculty member and researcher in particular. I find, I picked a highly intensive research institution because that was an area that I had no experience of, and I knew that I was going to struggle the most in that area. So I picked a place that was going to feel like research boot camp, and it did. And So I feel like coming in, some of the other folks that are new that didn't go to a place like that are really struggling to get research off the ground. And I feel like in the area where I was least comfortable, that's where I'm feeling pretty good. But in terms of like the personal and fitting in and the cultural stuff and, like and transitioning to first year on a job, I feel like we just never really covered that. I might've been asleep in those classes. If we did, maybe I'll admit it. But it's really just like, I feel like we didn't really talk about that a lot. And I think maybe that's kind of hard because everybody is going into such different situations. Not everybody went on to be a faculty at a place, and not everybody was a faculty at the same type of place, and, just such different things. And so, for me, this is the first time in my entire life where I've ever gotten to work in a place where there's another trans person besides me.
Wow.
So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
But, there's not a lot around how to like get into a place and how to really transition into a job, but tried to pull some of my information from other transitions to other jobs in the past, rely on some of my own stuff,
Yeah. And I'm also thinking like, it's probably, so for those of us who kind of transitioned from like undergrad to grad school, like master's program, but then also transitioning from master's program to PhD, those transitions, especially if you moved universities, were also so different. But I feel like the transition into a professional space, it's almost like, we think about it all the time, or at least I think about it like, oh, okay, like I'm ready for a job. I want to get a job. I want to be working.
I want to make money.
Yeah, like I want to make real money. Like, can I not be a GA just for like 2 seconds? It'd be great. But then also like the reality of being like, okay, now that I'm in this space, like WTF, like now what?
Yeah.
Yes, I could definitely agree with that because, you're in grad school, you're like, all right, so my goal is to be a counselor, right? I'm going to go and finish my classes, do my practicum and internship, and boom, I'm going to get my degree, and I'm going to be a good place and have everything that I want. And it's like, no, like, reality check. So, but I would say first and foremost, what was the difficult part is that when I graduated, it took about a good 6 months to even get a position. So that transition itself alone was difficult. And I went through a series of depression because the fact that I was so hard working and doing a lot of stuff, I'm thinking like, oh, it should be easy for me to get a position. And it was like, no, there's many other people as qualified, if not better or whatever than you. And then that's when reality sets in, like, then how could I differentiate myself from other people or other candidates for this position? So I had to put myself in like high gear to apply for positions. And luckily, when I found this position that I'm currently in, I think I had another position that was aligned to that too. And I was like, okay, finally I have a decision to choose which one I wanted to do. And, but in that transit, it was definitely difficult. Like I was not prepared for, feeling that I would not get the job that I wanted, and keep on like being persistent with finding it. I thought it'd be like much easier considering that it was a master's degree, but it's not.
Yeah.
It prepares you for like the political landscape that you might enter into, whatever that may be. You just don't know. Like, there are just things that you notice as a new person. That's what's so nice about hanging out with other people that are experiencing the institution for the first time, because you're like, is it just me, or is there something weird going on at this meeting? Like, just those kind of people are really critical to see, because you're looking at it from, similar eyes in terms of the newness, right? It might be different depending on your identities and stuff like that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I also think like it just so reminds me of like those memes that I always see. That's kind of like, I've gotten this degree, I'm gonna be a doctor, or I'm like a licensed master's counselor, but like I apparently need like 8 years of experience to like apply for this job. And so it's like that almost like fear and like just like uneasiness of being like, I have prepared for this and I feel prepared for this, but like, are people ready for me? Because it's not just like, am I ready? But it's like, how do I transition into this space? And is that space like, one, safe for me, right? Especially if you have multiple identities, but then two, like, can I grow there? And like, how do you address those questions?
I'm still trying to find it there, so no.
Courtney's got the answers. I don't have any.
It's definitely difficult. I don't even know I could try to answer. I could try my best, but that was what you said was like the most like accurate question I had. Like, are they ready for me? Because of minority wise, like if I'm in meetings, I'm like the only Black female in these meetings. So I'm thinking like, are they ready for me? Are there will they be receptive of me and my like feedback and stuff? But I'm typically a quiet person when it comes to like meetings and stuff, so I don't say much unless I really need to say something. Or just like me personally, I'm just kind of a different breed. Like I can see like how the culture is. I'm like, I'm definitely not like that. And it comes off kind of like, is she interested? She's not interested. But it's like, you don't really know me as a person, because I may be receptive to information, but I may react to it differently than other people do. So I mean, you may say something, I'm just like a straight face, like, okay, I understand. I'm not gonna be like, as everyone else would. So I think culturally it's definitely a big transition. But being in my second year in the position, I kind of got the culture now, so I'm kind of like more warming and welcome to like doing the same traditions and stuff as they would do. But at first I was kind of like, I'm not with this for for whatever it is. So yeah, it just took a lot of time to like just warm up and understand them a little bit more. And as I understood them, they understood me a little bit more. And now we're like, I'm at a better place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the culture is so, I don't know, higher ed as well is just such a really interesting culture where, it's like this mixture of, especially in Portland, it's a mixture of we're really traditional and we do things a certain way, but in Portland, we're supposed to be really progressive. And so we're going to try to break outside that box while making a different box for ourselves. And it's just this, it's really strange. And so, yeah, I think, and I warm up. I'm kind of reserved in that environment. Like I like to see what I'm getting kind of before I put out my goods.
Right.
So it's like I kind of see like who's who and what's what, and I try to see who's friends with who, and who talks to who the most, and what's going on, and just that's just how I am. That's how I come into a place. I sit and I listen and I watch and wait a lot. It's just kind of become my style. I used to think that was weird, but now I just think it's me. So, but yeah, and it's hard to find, like, kind of going back with the mentors, because this kind of fits in the situation for me. It's really hard to find mentorship for people like me in these situations. And so I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I've bridged connections with other people who have experienced other minoritization in different ways, so I can kind of see how people are responding to them and how they might deal with a particular issue. It's also different because transphobia looks different in Portland than it looks in Georgia. So rather than being kind of overt and in my face, it's really kind of a subtle and on the undercurrent, and you kind of have to figure out how to read the new pulse and how to navigate that in a way that you can still feel like a whole person in that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I apologize if I say your name wrong, but it looks like Kalia. They say, I can definitely agree with the stress of finding a job after graduation. So it seems like this is something that really resonates with a lot of people. Not just like, I feel like there's so much stress in like taking comps and graduating, but then we won't really address the other stress of like, going through this process of being successful in academia is not the same as being successful in a professional realm or like a professional space.
That is so true, because I feel like academically, like, yeah, like my transcript look awesome, and then I go to work, I'm like, how do I but it challenges me, because now I was in my comfort zone, like, yes, I'm a good student and I work hard, but how can I now transition that to my workplace and be just as equally as an asset? But that was an area I really struggled in. I'm thinking like, oh, am I even an asset for being here? But my boss, like I said, my boss always like affirmed like, yes, you are, you're great. So, but I had to also like check with myself and say like, all right, what can I do in my position to change something to make it a better part of my job? So I did do some events. Like currently I'm getting some students to go to a conference. I think that's like the highlight of doing that, because I had last year, I've done it. I had some of my students present about LGBT, and they loved it. And they were like, they were so happy. And they had received feedback, and all the people were like, they did a good job. So and first off, it was like their first time actually doing it. So they were like scared and nervous at first, but having them exposed to this, because this is mainly it's like the first time ever doing it, and they were excited. So now it gave them like the ammunition to do it more and more in their future. So I was just happy to even just expose that to them. And now this year I'm trying to do it again. So hopefully I had the same results as I did last year.
Absolutely. And something I really thought about is one of my mentors told me once that like in your first year in any position, like even if it's leadership or advocacy, that you really shouldn't expect to see a lot of movement or get a lot of stuff done. It's really not until like your second and third year when you really like know the environment and know what the context is. And then you can like really navigate that space just a lot differently. And I really feel like both of you really spoke to that, especially when really navigating the different identities. And also just like, especially when identities seems to be even more of an issue as we're getting into like 2018 and 2019 with some of the politics going on, really staying true to who you are and like owning your own process. So I'm also wondering, like in that process, and I think mostly I'm wondering for myself, because I feel like it's so hammered to us that like you should be members of ACA, or you should be in LGBT if you identify one way, or AMCD if you are a person of color, or CSJ if you are a social justice advocate. So like how do you, or even if you do you maintain your ACA membership, or have you, as you transition to other spaces, like identified with other organizations that have supported you in other ways?
That's a good question. I've maintained all of my memberships. I belong to AMCD and Algebatic and CSJ and ACA and ACES. I think one of these days I'm going to have to make some choices about financials and pick and choose. On certain years I might be one, and on certain years, because it's expensive to be part of all of those. But I feel like I feel like I'm able to connect with and network with people that are experiencing some similar things that I am in my workplace, and also have similar research interests and collaboration, and just, otherwise really good conversations, hearing what's kind of going on in their side of the world from this perspective. I feel like it's been really important to me to stay. I get a lot out of my professional memberships, just because it connects me to the field in other ways, going to the conferences. Sometimes it's just a matter of a family reunion of like seeing all these people that you love, that you've met at conferences over the years, that you're seeing what's going on with them. But it just feels important for a lot of different reasons. I don't really feel so much pressure, although there is, like if you're a faculty member, you're expected to be really part of some professional organization or sorts. Yeah. But nobody really decides what that is. And I feel like I get a lot out of it. They're not problem free, especially when in terms of like intersections of identity. Some people are feeling like they have to choose, and they can't be their whole self in one group or the other. And that's a problem I think our field really needs to address, and is being addressed, by some folks. But other than that, yeah.
As for me, unfortunately, I have not renewed any of my memberships. So part of being the first year transition to career, I was not aware that some of my funds could be allocated to pay for professional development. So now I realize that. So now I'm trying to do that and pay for my membership and stuff. But I felt like that'll be beneficial because, like Rafe was saying, that the connection that you make with the people at the conferences and getting those like newsletters and stuff, and having that resources for you can definitely contribute to your position in whatever field you're in. So I definitely miss like getting like the journals and stuff from ACA. So I wish that I can, you know, still pursue that and still have that. So I would say, yeah, I haven't, but I am definitely going to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a question from someone in the audience. So I'm going to unmute you, Samsung. I'm not sure what your name is, but if you want to ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Roberson. I attend Ohio University, first year doc student. I just had a question about, in terms of your transition. I'm hearing a lot of large numbers, such as I work with 160 students. So I just wanted to ask, how do you manage working with that caseload of students? Because it just seems so much more of a holistic planning for college students. So for our panelists, how do you manage that? And also, what recommendations or advice would you have for someone that is a novice learner and does not really know too much about first generation or trio students? When I was in college, I was a trio student. I was a Ronald E. McNair Scholar, but I don't really have really much experience since I'm not a first year generation student. So what advice or recommendations would you have for someone to start learning more about this population?
That's a very good question, Carla. So the first question, which was about the caseload, 160 students, it is definitely intense. And no, generally they said for any counselor or school counselor or anything to that effect, it's typically 250 per person. So 160 seems to be manageable. I think my most difficult part is just getting the students into the office. So when I do reach out to them saying, oh, your appointment's at this time, and they don't come, and it's kind of like a concern, like, is there a reason why you're not coming? I typically see the students that are on the lower performing part that do not or reluctant to come in because I think they're afraid to hear that I'm going to like be upset with them. But it's kind of like, I'm not going to be upset with you. I want you to understand that I'm here to support you. So if there's anything that's going on, I could be of assistance to you. And sometimes I may just meet them at the cafeteria or meet them at the common areas to see what they're doing and then bring them in and see what's going on. It may be something as minimal as like, oh, I didn't pay for my textbooks. And they're like, I could have helped you get your textbooks, or something as minimal as like, yeah, this professor said I just failed a test. I think I'm gonna fail the whole class. And it's like, let's look at the syllabus and outline like, all those percentages of the class. And I'm pretty sure that one test would not be the detrimental factor if you fail in the course. So it's just a matter of like their persona and rather like their mindset, which makes them feel like, you know, they don't want to come in. So reassuring them that we're here to support them is pretty much what I do in helping them. And to outreach to get them to know about our services, that's also a challenge too, because we work all together with different areas of programs. So we work with admissions, we work with faculty, we work with other grant-funded programs, and we do that to pretty much expose them to the program. So as little as like having a table outside and just getting students their attention or orientation. One thing we did this year was a thing called REVA, in which we got all the students that were coming in as first years and gave them all the resources they would need on campus. So if they qualify for it, they would then come in right to us to see us and then be part of a program. That has been very successful because a lot of students are not aware of it, and they come to us and they're like, oh, I remember you from orientation. You were the trio person and you were from trio. So then they identify us as that program and come to us for help. Now, increasingly too, faculty in other areas or other programs and stuff have been very much successful in referring students to us. So now we have this new database called Starfish, where online they just do a little button that says referral to trio, and then we'll get the student to come in, and then they'll be aware of the program too. but it's very minimal at this round. We're trying to get to a better and a higher percentage of getting the students into the program, but the little steps that we have right now have been making a good improvement. And yesterday, for a good example, one of my students was like, yeah, I love TRIO because it helped me from my GPA of being like a 0.5 to now being a better GPA. And she said it helped me so much that I'm telling everybody to come to TRIO. So word of mouth too is always a great referral as well.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, like, also on the other side, like, I think program management is like just such a unique piece of like how you get people to come in. But I'm also wondering, like, for Rafe, like, how do you get people to come to your office hours?
Oh, because it's a master's program, we don't really have office hours per se. Like mine are office hours as determined by students. So I just put it out there everywhere as like, just if you want to talk to me, just email me and tell me some good times and I'll just meet you in my office at those times, because I do site visits a lot. I'm out in and out of my office. I work from home some days, I work from the office some days. Depends on what I have. Like if I've got something where I'm not doing like face-to-face meetings, it's easier for me to get work done when I'm not here, because people always distract me and try to talk to me, and I like that better than my work, so I try to talk to them. But so yeah, I have students do that, and I have an advising caseload as well of students that I reach out to, and we're a small program, so we get to know students super duper well. And then when they're in my internship year, the second year, they all have my cell phone number, so because I'm always out and about, so we text each other. So if they need something, they text me and say, hey, can I call you right now? I'm having an issue coming up, as long as it's not like 11 o'clock at night or something like that. I did have a student text me at 11 o'clock at night the other night. I was like, yeah, you have to wait. I can't call you at 11:37 p.m. on a Friday night or a Saturday. No boundaries so that I can have like a life too.
Yeah, and I love Carla's question, because it really speaks to, one, meeting students where they're at, and then really figuring out like what your student population needs. So either like texting or some aspect of social media, or like really having it so simple as having a button so people can refer to TRIO, because they're not taking that extra step themselves. But then also like remembering your own boundaries and being like, okay, this is how I create the space for you to need what you need, but then I still have space for me to manage what I need to get done.
That is so correct. The boundaries part was a big struggle, because I, like in my first year, I felt like I had to like get to each and every student no matter what, no matter time. And then I realized that I am like in the burnout area right now, because if I'm like spreading myself thin, how am I going to have time to take care of myself? So in doing so this year around, I noticed that I set my boundaries a little bit better. So as far as communication goes, yeah, like between office hours of operation, and that's it. And then the question is there after 5 o'clock, it will have to wait till the next day to be answered. So I learned to manage that, and I feel a little bit better managing that too. And also my other concern was that as soon as like come into my office, and I'm like, okay, you set an appointment or set a meeting to do so. And I felt a little bit better doing that now, because it's like, all right, let me just set a time, because they feel like, oh, she's free or her door is open, that she's free now. And it's like, It doesn't work that way. So now in our software, we just send a little link out, niggas set their appointment, and most students have been very much like using that to set their appointments, which I'm happy for. So
it's a great tool, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm like, I should do that apparently, so I'm not meeting all the people. And something you touched on, Courtney, and even for Rafe as well, like how do you, and I know in programs we talk all day until we're blue in the face about it, but like how are you partaking in self-care? And how have your self-care practices maybe changed as you've been like a little bit further into your positions now?
Self-care. What's that?
You're like,
no, I practice, I feel like I'm mediocre at self-care, like I've gotten better over the years. I find it's, like I'm a walker, and I love, like there's nothing that almost can't disappear, or at least lessen the impact of something if I don't just go walk it off. And so I tend to do that a lot. When I'm off, I'm off. I'll even put my out of office on. And then I don't take calls or, tech, or I don't respond to emails at that time. If it's my research day, I try to take that, and then I try not to cloud it up with a lot of things. So stuff like that. I mean, for me, the worst thing for me is to like look at my calendar and see like 40 million things on there. And so I try to really focus on what do I have to do today? Yeah. And then say, what do I have to do tomorrow? Because it's just one of those things that there's always something. There's always a crying baby to feed or bathe or burp or something, change their diaper, like, I don't mean that like in a student's kind of way. I mean, just like whether it's like a programmatic thing that needs to happen or, a process that needs to happen, there's always something. And so you can really get lost in that if you're not careful. And I think to the degree that you're able to start that right away and not have to go back and do that, because people get used to your way of doing things at the beginning. But if you're like the yes person that says, yeah, I'll take that on. Oh yeah, you're having a hard time here. Let me do that too. If you're that person, you're going to get that reputation early on. And so when you start saying no, people are going to be really disappointed and angry and frustrated at you because you always did it before. Yeah. And so I think it's really good to come in and use some of that language. Like I even tell my students when they're transitioning out to their careers, I say, like, I'm still kind of new at this, and I've got a lot of stuff on my plate right now. Can I get back to you on that and see how I can work that in, or maybe not, Yeah. I said, just buy yourself some time so you don't have to say yes, because I have an inclination to just say yes and help people and try to ease their burden in some way. So I just say, hey, can I get back to you on that? And that's what really works for me. Then I can have time to think about it.
I'm going to piggyback off of that because I actually just had a conversation with my coworker this past, 2 days ago about this. And he told me that, Courtney, because he works in residence life, so he hears a lot of stuff from the students. So he said, oh, Courtney, well, some of the students love you and some students hate you. And that was actually aside the fact that I heard students hate me because it's the fact that I know that they don't like me because I'm doing something that is foreign to them. So the students that he said that the ones that don't like me are the ones that are like low performing and want stuff to be done for them. And I don't like to do stuff for students. So the fact that they hear a no, it's like, oh, she don't want to do this for me. And it's like, I'm challenging you to get outside your comfort zone so that way you can be more self-sufficient when you exit out of the school. And they don't see that right now, but I think later on they will then see that. But I was so excited to hear that. The other question about self-care, I love sleep. Like I love to sleep. And that's like one of the best things that I like to do. So one thing I did today was actually take the train here because I know that I was going to go to sleep. So instead of me driving, because I drive all the time being upstate, I decided to take the train. And I got sleep and it was great. But now I had to like transition to snow, so that made it even worse. But yeah, and when I'm back at home in upstate New York, I do tend to sleep like a lot. So I might go to sleep early, like 8 o'clock at night, and then sleep throughout the night. And I know I had a good sleep, but I woke up and I'm like, yes, I feel so much better and refreshed. Yeah. So that's my biggest form of self-care right now. It's just getting a lot of sleep.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that you said is so important to me. So like whether it's sleeping or walking or I do a lot of CrossFit or weightlifting, it's making sure that what you're doing is like fulfilling you and like doesn't feel like a burden to do. Making sure it's like you get replenished from that activity so you can like transition into that next space or really be ready for that next event. So I'm going to open it up because we're almost out of time for any last questions or one more question if anyone has anything. All right. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedules, especially I know you're traveling today, Courtney, so I definitely appreciate it. This was amazing. You both are absolutely amazing. I love you both to the moon and back. Can you very briefly tell us what you're doing next or where we can go next? Oh, yes.
I think I pressed the speaker by mistake, but as we're ending, just thank you also you guys did a great job, and I was happy that you guys shared your information about how to help students transition into college. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. That's no problem at all. So, Rafe and Courtney, if you want to tell us like where we can see you next, or if we'll see you next, if you're going to be at any conferences where people can meet you, or what we can expect next from you.
I'll be at ACA in April.
Okay.
Going back to my old stomping grounds.
I'll be there. Come down, Courtney. I'll be there too. So ACA, it is what, the 22nd? I think. I don't know.
It's in Atlanta this year, correct?
Yeah, it's in Atlanta this year. Yep. All right. So ACA, and then Courtney's at NASPA, which is huge in if you're interested in doing higher ed, but more importantly, student affairs. NASPA is the place to go. I've been to NASPA before. It is awesome. It is so fun. So yeah, really staying in touch with a national organization that supports you and helps you grow in the spaces that you absolutely want to be in. So thank you so much again. I really appreciate you taking the time and putting yourselves out there and being willing to be recorded, but also supporting students. This was for students of not just Counselors for Social Justice, but all of ACA and abroad. And what I will do is I will edit this video up a little bit and put some of your contact information in there, if that's okay. I'll email you guys first, and then hopefully get this posted next week so people can watch it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Desa. It was so good to meet you, Courtney, and everybody. Thank you for having me.
Likewise.
You guys have a fantastic weekend, and stay dry, Courtney. Stay warm, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Right. Bye.
Bye.